I know, I'll put my hands up here. I'm late. It's over a month since MLS Cup and I'm just now getting to my reactions to my predictions from February. But with the World Cup, life, and the end of my college semester, it's been a bit busy over here. But in my opinion, it's better late than never. In this video, I'll be reacting to and grading my questionable predictions from the beginning of the 2022 season. If you've never seen a video like this before, how we grade it is by seeing how many positions my predictions are off from where teams actually finished. Each position equals 1 point, and the more points, the worse. Now, be aware MLS is and has always been tough to predict. The parity amongst the clubs means you never truly know when a club will rise and fall. This year, there were some big upsets, and we'll get into that. So with 28 teams to get through, let's just get moving here. We're starting off over in the Western Conference, where we'll start with the two bottom teams, San Jose in 14th and Houston in 13th. Starting off strong, I nailed my San Jose to finish bottom of the West, and my Houston pick wasn't far off either. Both of these teams really struggled, and I think most people saw that coming. San Jose had major issues in the managerial position and sacked their coach midway through the season, and Houston did about the same with Pablo Nagamura. Moving up the table, we see some of my first few big mistakes. Sporting Kansas City had them in 4th and they finished 12th. That's a whopping 8 points that pick gives me. I did know that Alan Pulido would be out for the year when I made this pick, but I didn't think his absence would make the SKC attack basically disappear. It wasn't all him though, but that was a key part in their disappointing season. With a lot of other injuries too, Kansas City just limped throughout the first 3/4 of the year. The next pick doesn't get any better. Seattle in 11th, I had them in 1st place, like many others, and yeah, it's just another huge tally that I get to add to my total. Who would have thought that a team who's made the playoffs 13 years in a row would flunk out the year that they win CCL? This is probably the biggest upset of the season, so I'm not too disappointed in myself, but I mean, this one definitely hurts. Colorado in 10th place. I basically called this one. From 1st place in the West last year, I knew they couldn't repeat it. I had them in 8th, and I mean, I think that's as close as I could have got. In 9th, Vancouver, I also feel good about this call, only having them 1 place down. I know Vanni Sartini finished the 2021 strong, but I knew his magic probably wouldn't last. But to keep Vancouver fighting until the final day, I think the Caps fans could be satisfied with their 2022 year. In 8th place landed Portland, and a disappointing year for the 2021 MLS Cup runners-up. Portland struggled out of the gates this year, but eventually they started to figure it out. They remained competitive throughout the year, and like Vancouver, their fate was decided on the final day of the regular season. I think you could worry if you're a Portland fan because I think we're starting to see the age of this squad catch up with them, but with a few younger replacements possibly coming in, I would bet on a better playoff push next season. Next up, Real Salt Lake, and another pretty bad call in my case, finishing 5 spots higher than I thought they could. This is a team that was surprisingly at the top of the table for quite some time for the first half of the year, and luckily for them, that great start kind of cushioned their bad form later on in the year. With no real DPs who were healthy for a significant amount of time, I think RSL were one of the more overperforming teams this season. 2 years in a row, they pulled off the miracle by squeezing into the playoffs, but to do it again, we need to see some real investment in this squad. In 6th place, I got my second 100% correct placement with Minnesota United. Right around this playoff line are teams who just got into the postseason on that final day. For Minnesota, probably a bit disappointed to be in that position so late on. There were some fans calling for Adrian Heath to be let go after this year, but instead he's been given a new contract. You'd expect them to move up the table a bit next season, but they really need to find a consistent number 9 for that to be a possibility. 5th place, Nashville, and they struggled a lot more than I thought they would. The typical Nashville we got used to seeing wasn't there this year really at all. A lot of defensive mistakes, which is uncharacteristic of this team, and even with the brand new stadium opening up this season, I was surprised they couldn't make it as much of a fortress as we saw with Nissan Stadium. I'm assuming next year Nashville will be back in the East with St. Louis joining the West, which I'm not too sure plays quite into their hands well because the East is only getting stronger these days. Into the top 4, LA Galaxy sit 4th with their best finish in quite a few years. I did have them making the playoffs, so I'm happy with that call, and I think we're only just seeing the beginning of Greg Vanney's time in LA. The Galaxy really played well this year, and with a few more adjustments to the squad, I think we'll see the Galaxy stay competitive in the playoffs in the future. In 3rd place, here's a big one, FC Dallas. I, for one, did not see this coming whatsoever. New head coach Nico Estevez really put a mark on this team, and with some fresh signings and the backing of Jesus Ferreira on a DP deal, it all paid off. Dallas not only held together a really strong defense throughout the year, but their attack did the job as well. from 11th to 3rd is a huge turnaround and would probably be the best season turnaround of the year if it weren't for our second place team, Austin FC. I put Austin in 13th, and like many others, man, did they prove us wrong. Which, I mean, they were really adamant about in their social media posts throughout the year. I knew Austin had some bright signs after their 2021 campaign, with Stuver proving to be vital and Josh Wolf's dedication to his system, but no way did I see them fighting for top of the West the whole year. From one of the worst teams on the scoring front to the best, Austin pulled off the incredible, and rightfully so, destroyed my point tally here. And finally, first place in the West and the champions of MLS LAFC. After missing out on the playoffs the previous year, I sensed a return to greatness for LAFC, but not as much as they actually did. With new head coach Steve Cherundolo in the fold, I figured it would take an extra year or two for him to get this side to where they were in 2018 and 2019. But Cherundolo, along with some great offseason signings like Ilay Sanchez, Hollingshead, Crepeau, and Kellen Acosta, LAFC achieved the ultimate goal. I'm glad Carlos Vela was able to finally achieve what he arguably deserved with this team. After all the totals are added up in the West, I'm sitting at 59 points, which isn't that great. But compared to others, I think I held my own somewhat. On the YouTube front, Danny T Radio, my boy, finished the West with 58 points, so I'm pretty even with that. And Matt Doyle and Tom Boger of MLS Soccer ranked 56 and 72 respectively. Now moving to the East, and last, DC United, another team who fired their manager early on into the year, but I put them on the lower end of my table, so only 2 spots away for them. Next up though, it gets a bit rough with Toronto, who finished second to bottom. Meanwhile, for some reason, I had them as high as 5th place. I think I really overestimated the ability of such a young squad, and I didn't realize how much fixing Bob Bradley would have had to accomplish in his first year to get Toronto back into the playoffs. They did get some top talent eventually with Insigne and Bernardeschi, but it was far too late to save their year. Then Chicago, another team I positioned relatively close. It was always going to be a tough year for Chicago. New coach, not a real system in place, it was a rebuilding year. Shaqiri definitely did not live up to the high hopes, and because of that, Chicago never really found consistent form. Another really bad pick I had Atlanta topping the East this year, and that did not even come close to happening. Again, with MLS, you never really know when teams will rise and fall, and I put all of my money into Atlanta having a great second year under Gonzalo Pineda, and it just didn't happen. With so much talent and how much money they spend on players, they really should not have finished as low as 11th place, but I mean, I'll take it. This one's all on me. In 10th place, New England Revolution, and another team I bombed here, and so did a lot of other people. Coming off a record-setting regular season, who would have guessed that Bruce Arena would fall so hard? Basically, all of their offseason signings flopped. Omar Gonzalez, Altidore, Sebastian Lletget, you name it. Align that with injuries too, not a great year whatsoever. In 9th place, Charlotte, who I underestimated, and I'm not really too sure why. If you remember at the beginning of the year, everyone talked about how Charlotte was going to end up near the bottom of the table. Even their head coach was saying stuff like that. But they managed well in their first year, especially when you consider they had an unseen coaching change in the middle of their season for reasons that are still a bit vague. Do I regret putting them in 13th? Probably not, but I'd say they should be happy with their inaugural season. And next up, we'll do this in a chunk of 3 because all of these teams had their fates collide on the last few games of the year. Columbus, Orlando, Miami. I predicted all of these teams in these 3 spots from 8th to 6th, but not in the correct order. I saw another unfortunate year coming for Columbus. I didn't think they had the best offseason ever, and I knew they'd toe the line. And in the end, I had them 7th and they finished 8th. For Orlando, I had them in 6th and they finished 7th. So another success in my opinion. They had a lot of turnaround from 2021, and I think their signings held up, especially Facundo Torres, who proved to be vital for this team. And for Miami, I had them in 8th, but they made the playoffs in 6th place, which is definitely a great year no matter what for this team. They were able to handle their roster restrictions after the Blaise Matuidi scandal, and eventually Phil Neville was able to get Higuain working as his guy in the squad. It's unfortunate that he's hung up his boots after becoming so crucial for Miami, but it is what it is. And in the top 5 positions, we have some surprises, beginning with FC Cincinnati, who finally broke their bottom of the league curse to finish in the playoffs for the first time ever. Coming into the year, I could sense Cincinnati were going to improve on their previous seasons, but after they let me down in 2021, I didn't give them any hope, and I slapped them in 14th, which I'm paying the price for here. Brandon Vasquez, Brenner, Lucio Acosta were all on fire this season, and Cincinnati were actually one of the most entertaining teams to watch this year. With the right guidance in the front office, I think Cincinnati's time in the depths of the Eastern Conference is over. Moving to fourth, we have the New York Red Bulls, another position that kind of screwed with my predictions here because I had them all the way down in ninth. Lewis Morgan, an offseason pickup, really carried this Red Bull team, and a few other signings helped as well, including Laquinios. I'm not super high on the Red Bulls after this year, and I think their playoff game showed that, but if this team could find a number 9 that can contribute to the scoring front more than Petra Klimala, I think they'll be in a better position to actually get past the first round of the playoffs for once. In third, NYCFC. I had them pretty nailed on for the top 3 in the East. The departure of Tati Castellanos and Ronnie Dyla, for that matter, almost ruined NYCFC season, but eventually Nick Cushing figured it all out. There's a lot of talent in this New York City squad, and finally with the stadium coming, there's a lot to be happy about for New York. And now for another pick that really killed me. Montreal. Wilfried Nancy pulled off some managerial masterclass to get this squad at the level they were playing at. For a team that kind of came out of nowhere, this squad had a lot of game changers, from 38-year-old Kai Kamara to Georgi Mihalovic and the rising star Ismail Kone. The issue is, though, all that good fortune left this year with Kone, Mihalovic, Wanyama, and Wilfried Nancy leaving the club. Hopefully for Montreal fans, this wasn't the peak, but it really doesn't look bright for their future. It's tough to build on what they accomplished this year when they really have to restart in 2023. And finally, top of the East, the MLS Cup runners-up, the Philadelphia Union. Every season, Jim Curtin gets his team to play some of the most entertaining football, no matter who they ship off to Europe in the offseason. With the best attack and defense, this Union side was great. I had them in fourth, so I picked up a few points there, but next season I'm expecting another strong run from Philadelphia. So after tallying up all of my Eastern Conference points, we ended with 62, which is a big drop off from last season. When we add up our 62 in the East to our 58 in the West, my full tally for the 2022 predictions is 121. I know there were some big upsets this season, but still, I'm not proud at all of my score here. It does make me feel a bit better that other people are around my numbers, but still, that just means we all kind of suck. To compare, Danny T Radio relatively sitting well there with 116 points, and for MLS journalist Matt Doyle, he did really well, finishing with 108. But Tom Bogert, absolute mare here, ending off with 130 points, 9 more than what I finished with. So compared to last year, I dropped the ball. For 2021, I ended up with 92 points, so getting 121 this season really kills me. Even though, yes, there was an extra team that was added to this season, but no excuses. So there it is. I finally got around to looking at my predictions for the 2022 year. If anything, it's motivated me to be better next time around. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys next time.